What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm here with Robert Rachow. Robert, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Doing good, and feeling good. Obviously, and you know the rest of it, right? I don't have to tell you the rest. So I don't know if I introduced myself. I'm John J. the second for everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining us today on the DCP. It's been a long time coming. It's been since the Super Bowl, since the Eagles shocked the world against the Kansas City Chiefs and won it. Okay, it's been a while, but see, it's the blink of an eye too, because then you have the draft in April, and now we're getting to late May, and now we're starting to talk about what is this season going to bring. So let me just ask you that right off the bat here, Robert. What does this season have in store before we even see it, before we even have any games, before we have any preseason games, any of that stuff? What do we have to look forward to in this season?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of exciting new players. Like the rookie draft for on the offensive side of the ball seems to have a lot of studs. So tight end, running back, receiver. I think there's going to be impacts at all positions. Um, Obviously it wasn't a huge quarterback draft. A couple guys, were notable, but even a few of the notable ones slid, which we'll talk about later. But that's what I'm looking forward to, just seeing how these rookies play. And Lions picked up that this Tesla guy that no one had on their radar, so I'm kind of looking forward to that as well, and just seeing how they can integrate him into their offense, and how teams around the league are going to do the same with their new players.
Right. So I want to get into the nitty gritty with the NFL draft with you. But yeah, just touched on the Lions pick. And it seems like Brad Holmes and a lot of those guys in the head office, they know what they're doing. They've proven that, especially with last season and their playoff berth, et cetera, playoff win. So they know what they're doing. How do these guys have the ability, and really what goes on in a war room when it comes to drafting a star player that might not be star studded? It's the same thing with fantasy, right? How are you going to draft that guy that might not be at the top for point projections,
Mhm.
but you know he's going to be an ace in the hole and he's going to really be a dark horse come the midpoint in the season, late in the season, going into playoffs. He's going to be that guy that's just not on anyone's radar right now. How does a war room go about choosing that guy?
Yeah, so I really like listening to Brad Holmes and all of his interviews after the draft about it. They were really asking the good questions, like why'd you take this receiver? No one really had him this high on their draft board. Intangibles look good, but he's kind of unproven. Like he didn't have the big stats in college. Um, but yeah, he had all the right answers. He said the guy's a physical specimen. I think he's like top 20 for a RAS score, relative athletic score, all time for testing receivers. He's like, runs what a 4.3, 4.4 40, tall, lean, good hands. Um, so they look at the intangibles, and they also looked at the offense that he was in college, which they didn't throw the ball, a lot his way, which is surprising with how good of a player he is. And, he didn't have drops in college. So it just kind of seemed like he was underutilized. So he kind of found this gem player that was maybe in an underutilized offense in college, still playing Division I football, obviously. Um, and for him to be there in the mid rounds was good. I was shocked at what they gave up. What they gave up, trading multiple third round picks to get the guy who was really an unheralded receiver, who in the Lions offense, at best right now he's going to be receiver three, right? I mean, you got Jamison Williams and St. Brown. So you look at it that way, it's like, well, does it really make sense to take a receiver? He's the best player available kind of guy. I mean, that's how he's always drafted. He's going to take the best value. Now, as far as trading multiple picks, he said that there was actually a lot of interest in him from other teams around where the Lions picked at. So they kind of had a feeling that if they didn't take him right where they took him, that he would be gone. So um, me personally, I just trust Brad Holmes at this point. Like whatever he wants to do in the draft, like it's kind of hard to question. I mean, you go back in time, look at Jameer Gibbs. Look at some of the players, even Sam Laporta. It's like, okay, what we got Hawkinson or we got these running backs. Like, why are we taking these players? And then ends up being, a league leader, both statistically and just in how they're integrated into the offense. So I think it's a great pick. and he's looked really good in the limited camp stuff that they've seen so far. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's still big questions on defense. And in the past couple of years, you could argue that the Lions could have gotten farther with a better defense. Now, granted, they had all these injuries, so that's kind of the caveat to last season. You go back a couple years, they just had a terrible defense. There was, limited talk about, the injuries then, but last year it was like injury plague season. So I think that all of that considered, time will tell. But with their offense, I think it just got a little tick better with this addition on offense and at the receiver position.
Yeah, and you look at what are the Detroit Lions, what does Brad Holmes, what do all these guys look for in receivers? It kind of has a common, consistent narrative, which is lanky, tall, fast. Obviously, it sounds kind of cliche, sounds stereotypical of a classic NFL wide receiver, but no, that's not the case. You want guys that can catch the ball. You want guys that can catch the ball in stride, and you want ball security too. I think that's something that should be is a paramount, especially at the wide receiver position. Getting to the touches first. Not only that, but getting the ball to the ground. So placement passing, placement catches, those are things, and you kind of it brings it back to the intangibles, right? Looking at the intangibles, what do these guys have? What is their style of playing the wide receiver position? That's what Brad Holmes, I think, is looking for.
Yep.
So, and how does it fit the style of your offense?
Yep.
So, and that's gonna be the case in point of this season, and that's gonna basically show and breed what the Detroit Lions are at the wide receiver position. So we'll have to see what that manifests into going into this season. But I wanted to talk to you about Travis Hunter. What do we have to think about Travis Hunter, both mentally, physically? What's going on with him off the field? What's going on? What can we look forward to seeing on the field? What's going on with Travis Hunter right now?
Yeah, I mean, the whole can he play both ways at the NFL level is the question everyone's asking. And I think the most obvious answer is it's going to be very difficult to be fully committed to both. Now whether he plays a limited role on the offense and plays full time corner or vice versa, that would make the most sense to me personally, and it's been done. You know, um, but it's hard to be good at one position, let alone two, especially at the NFL level. The amount of film study it takes, the amount of plays they have to know, and they don't have to just know the play. As you know, we've played football. Like you don't just have to know your play or your route. You got to know everyone else is doing. And so now, times two because you got to do that on defense. So that's just really tough ask for a player, especially fresh out of college. I mean, he's still young. He's still got a lot to learn, especially about the NFL speed and the way they scheme around the football versus college, where it's more just go 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 every play. Um, can he get off a block and make some tackles in the run? There's things like that, like that's going to come up in the NFL that are going to be a lot more important than they were in college. So I think that's the biggest question. It's hard to question his athleticism. I mean, he's a freak athlete, and what he was able to do in college is just insane. I mean, it might not happen again in our lifetime as far as the accolades that he was able to get during college. So I think it's exciting. I think it's really cool. And what do you even do? Like, what do you do with fantasy football? Like, are you going to pick him up? With all the risks that's going to have. He might only get 5 touches a game for all we know. Like,
Well,
and
yeah, you talk about
you got
rookie
the Heisman.
liability.
Yeah,
Rookie liability. I mean, that's times 10,
yeah,
especially you're talking about playing both sides of the ball potentially, which is kind of crazy in and of itself at the
yeah,
NFL level. Okay, now it's one thing to do it in college, and that has its own, like you said, its own accolades to be given for doing that. But you're playing a completely different style of football. You're playing with veterans,
yeah,
essentially, guys in their 30s, grown men that have been playing the sport for a long time and know how to play at the next level in the NFL. So it's a big ask. I think it's ambitious to say the least, but is it actually going to happen? I guess is a whole other ball game, and we gotta wait and see. Do they even test that out in the preseason? Because that's something that you really kind of want to unleash. Maybe you test them out a couple plays here, a couple plays there, but especially in the game of football. You can't be a jack of all trades and expect to be a master at both. So
Yeah, at least not
it's
in the
just
modern
tough.
age. You go back,
Yeah.
decades, back to early football days. Sure, they all
Yeah.
played every position, but they weren't the athletes that they are today. I mean, it's just a different era of football. Um, it's hard to compare eras like that. So people will go say, well, yeah, all these guys back in the day did it. It's like, yeah, it's just not the same game anymore.
Right. And we were talking about that the other day on Friday about how Larry Bird was talking about if LeBron and all these guys were playing back in their day, would they be kicking their ass? Of all the greats that we know back of the 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s, and that's a completely different style of basketball. And Larry Bird said it himself. I believe it was at the ESPYS. And now I would argue with this new age of NBA, it's continuing to change even from LeBron James's heyday in the 2010s. So seeing the game change exponentially quickly over the years, the windows are getting shorter for really great evolving of the game.
Yep.
And I think that's happened in football at a great extent. But it speaks to that point of you just really can't do it anymore. And it's not apples to apples when you're comparing athleticism and especially playing both sides of the ball. It's just not, it can't be apples to apples. It's not reality. So I think he's going to do great. I guess if you had to pick one for him, what side of the ball do you think he'd play if you had to pick?
I'd say he'd play corner, and I think they're going to put him at corner as a full time starter, and then kind of get him in on maybe he gets 10 or 15 or 20 plays in a game and gets a couple looks. That's kind of what I think's going to happen, but you never know. I mean, he was pretty vocal about being able to do both, and he's like, "Yeah, I won't play for a team at the next level that doesn't allow me to do that." But obviously, he never clarified to what capacity. Is it going to be starting both sides of the ball? I mean, who knows? But um, he's obviously proven he's capable to do either. So whether that translates to the NFL is yet to be seen. But I think that it's more on the defense for me. Like the amount of like huge plays that he made on defense just to me always overshadowed what he was able to do on offense, even though he did a lot. But every time I think of Travis Hunter, I think of some insane interception, like personally.
Yeah, I mean that's just kind of what the story of especially last season was. Regardless of how shitty Colorado played as a team,
Yep.
it's kind of water under the bridge. It really speaks to what they did the year prior. And that's kind of why he earned what he earned, and which was a lot. And it's continuing to grow as far as his list of accomplishments goes. So
Yep.
I'm excited to see what he can do, and we'll have to just wait and see.
Yep. For sure, man. He's gonna be an exciting player.
Absolutely. So I had a question for you that just actually came across my desk just now, and I was like, I was reading this. I'm like, what is this? I know what this is. I've heard it before, but I really want to know what it is. So ESPN has this thing called the FPI, or the Football Power Index. What do you know about this? And it's kind of, they come up with their own things, they coin their own terms, their own phrases. What does this have to do with with football and how we look at stats and how we look at teams?
So is this more of their version of like team power rankings, or is this on a player to player
So it
basis?
looks like all they say is it's their football ratings and projection model, which launched Wednesday for the 2025 season. So it seems like a pretty new thing, but they base it on a variety of things: points scored per game, points allowed, yards passing per game, yards rushed per game, yards allowed. They take that all and they put it in a blender, and I think that they make their projections strength wise per team based on that.
Sure.
So
Yep.
they give them a rating based on that, the aggregate.
Yeah, I'm sure some AI and algorithms and stuff's
Oh
involved
yeah,
now. Like
oh yeah,
it's getting a
definitely.
little crazy with the amount they can do with it. So, but yeah, I mean, the second the football starts, week one, all that goes out the window because once the players step on the field, it's all different, man. Like somebody gets injured, completely different season. Jared Goff goes down, Lion season's in the trash. Like, and all your algorithms and AI doesn't do anything for that. So You
Goes
know,
to shit
yeah, oh,
completely.
yeah. It's just like, you got this game plan in a game and, well, they got an idea of what they're gonna do in the season, but it can all change in a heartbeat, so that's kinda where my head's at with it. I think that they're generally pretty accurate just because of obviously the sports betting side of things. Like, does this team, at 10.5 over under, like, that's usually not crazy far off because they've got billions of dollars on the line for it, so, they're usually pretty decent with that, and then you can also get into the whole, is the NFL rigged? Do they favor certain teams? And then when you get to the Super Bowl, that's why everyone was rooting for the Eagles. It's like, man, you saw all these games the Chiefs won because largely because they were favored by the refs. It's like, you know, on that big of a stage, it's like they kind of let everybody play and the Eagles just were the better team. And it's like, well, if there's no intervention with big calls and, third down, fourth down calls, red zone calls, and you just let the guys play, it's a completely different scenario. So, yeah, you can get into that too as far as, like, how is the NFL rig I don't think it is. I think they do favor certain teams, especially being a Lions fan, we had to sit there and watch Aaron Rodgers and the Packers get call after call after call for seemingly ever, and, yeah, never seeming to slide our way, and it's like, well, now that the Lions are kinda good, we've had some calls go our way in games that would have never went our way in the past, so, um I don't know if it's necessarily a conspiracy or what, but it definitely all ties into the sports betting and the projections. It's all looped together. I feel like they do what they can at times to affect scores and outcomes of games, but I don't think it's straight up rigged. Like, because how would you have a full conspiracy with hundreds of players keeping their mouths shut? Um, it just wouldn't happen. So, I don't think it's a full blown conspiracy, but I do think they tweak things to favor the odds, let's say.
Interesting, because I've never really, and I got to be honest with you, Robert. We've talked about sports betting here and there, and you've talked about maybe throwing some coin on some games here and there, but I wouldn't
Yep,
call you an avid sports bettor. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're more of a brass tacks kind of guy. Give me the game, give me what the players are doing, give me the raw competition of it, and
yep,
maybe I'm going to have a favorite team, but you probably won't catch me calling out spreads and things of that nature week after week. Maybe sometimes you will. And I think you have the knowledge to do that if you choose to. But it's all personal preference of what you're deciding to do on that given week. So that's why I really like getting your perspective on the sports betting side of things. But I got to ask you this: how does Vegas, and I think they're throwing all this stuff kind of like the ESPN FPI, the Football Power Index that they've got. They're probably taking that, and it's not really a surprise at this point either to know that ESPN has their own sports book. So
yep.
that's probably not surprising in that same vein. But how does
Yeah,
Vegas week after week? And I want to know. I haven't got this answered yet, Robert. Is how do we get to the point as sports bettors, whoever we are, and a lot of people in our community are sports bettors, sports betting degenerates, as they've been called before. How does Vegas get to a line where they're saying, okay, we're taking we're taking Detroit minus 3.5. Okay, and that's right in the sweet spot of having a good spread and having a terrible spread. You'd like to have 3 points or less, get past that hump of a field goal. Don't make it come down to a field goal and not cover by half a point. And then you see that, get really close. I'd say within a point or half a point, more times than not, it seems.
yep.
How does Vegas get to that point where they're getting so close on these lines with all the twists and turns that happen throughout a game?
I think it's just because historically, most NFL games are a one-score game. Um, most games are come down to a touchdown, 3 points, like, it's not too often unless you have those juggernaut teams that are blowing everybody out that the spreads are gonna grow to double digits. If it's an average game with 2 similar teams or teams that are at remotely the same level, they're usually gonna have that one-score spread just because historically, that's how the game's gonna go. They're both got, full rosters of multimillionaire paid players, veterans, coaches that do this for a living, right? So, um, there's a competitive standpoint that you're looking at the best of the best for the NFL of football players in the world. So You're just putting them all in there in the Coliseum and letting them go to work. So I think that's why the lines are so close. Is just historically the scores are close, um, and then you can argue whether they do things to favor that spread and keep it closer, or do they kick that field goal at the end to cover spread or whatnot? Like, those are the things that people question. I don't think that stuff's happening, but it does seem to question as far as the officiating and whether that's coming into effect to affect the lines or not as well. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of it. All plays in, and tying back to the ESPN thing is like, is that a conflict of interest to have a power ranking system and have a sports betting website? And I wonder how in tune they are with each other. Like, are they projecting a certain team to go really high and have favorable spreads? You know what I mean? That kind of would tie back into each other. So like you're just on ESPN's website and reading their articles and their new algorithms, are they gonna kind of influence your decision in your sports betting? And is that some kind of backdoor way for them to make more money? I think so, but Um, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be some giant sports conspiracy theorist guy. Um, at the end of the day, I don't even really think it's happening. But the more the sports betting gets ingrained, the more you got to question why things are happening the way they are. Why do they want to add more games? Why do they want to do this? It's all money, man. Like, they want to add another game so all the owners can get more ticket revenue and TV deals and streaming service deals, and they also want people to bet on more games. So um, all that ties in together, and at the end of the day, it's all about money. So,
Very well said. We'll end it there, and I'm sure we'll continue this conversation at another time, because it's an interesting thing because you think
yeah,
about sports betting, sports books essentially as they're called, and then you have sports broadcasting companies too, which if they're one and the same, I could see that conflict of interest there. While yes, a lot of the spreads and over unders, they're pretty much within half a point across the board. They might not always be the same across every sports book. But what is also interesting is they are pretty much saying where Vegas in and of itself, unless the sports book deviates from Vegas, Vegas makes those lines.
yep,
So, but it's just so crazy. And this is what I'm going to ask you at another time and let this marinate. How do they get to a certain line? Like if it's Detroit, say they're playing Dallas, we're going to give them -3.5. Why isn't it -3? Because there's probably a guy in the room. If there's a committee of guys or gals, whatever, they're saying, "Oh, well, I think it should be 3, or I think it should be 2.5. Let's give the betters a little bit of juice. Let's give them 2.5. We'll get some more weight on the Dallas side or on the Detroit side, taking them, beating the spread and whatnot." It's just like, how do those conversations happen, and then how do they get to a consensus where it's like, okay, boom, we got it. It's 2.5. You're right. We made it
sure.
because they can't be having those kind of deliberations. We know they're not,
I
and
think it's
there's
all a
so many
computer.
games. There's so
Yeah,
many
it's.
games.
I think they're just all relying on the computer algorithms now. Like, it's all just whatever the computer model is going to spit out. That's what they run the line at, and they might make some tweaks, but because of that historic record of teams getting in close games, like, they just kind of run with those, and you know it's hard to beat Vegas, man. If you ever walk into a casino thinking you're gonna come out a winner, you got a tough sled ahead of you. So,
Hell yeah, that's no different for sports betting.
you
Where you think you can beat the bookies. Where like, oh, there's an edge here where these guys aren't seeing. Sometimes you might be right, but the vast majority of times, let's say damn close to 90% of the time, Vegas is going to be more right than you.
oh
So
yeah, 100%.
that's just the reality of it. It's a hell of a rabbit hole. Before we get too far deep, let's talk about these rules changes. So they might hold a similar amount of weight. I wouldn't say they're as mountain moving, I guess I can say, as they were last year. But tell us a little bit about the rules changes and which ones are going to have the most impact in the 25-26 season.
I think the ones to talk about really are the talk most about are the ones that didn't get passed, right? So they tried to ban the tush push, or QB sneak with assistance, however you want to look at it. And that didn't pass. So the question behind that, is it an unfair play? And to me, it is only because they don't allow the defense to do the same thing. If they were to allow the linebackers and everybody to stack up in the middle and push their guys into the center, it would be fair game in my eyes. But they don't want to do that because they originally, banned that just because they didn't want the center getting hurt. But it's like, well, now what about the D linemen? I mean, they're just getting piled on. So how does it go both ways? Obviously, they want to favor the offense because they want a high scoring league. They want more points scored. They want excitement. They want people to pay attention to the games. Um, so that's kind of where that fell. So I'm not surprised exactly. I mean, they made it like a buzz thing in the offseason, just like it was going to be a plausible thing. I think it failed like 22-10 or something like that. So, or it failed like more than they thought it would. They thought it was going to be a lot closer. So,
That's
uh,
interesting though, because we talked about the tush push. We talked about it a lot
yeah,
going into the postseason last year, and I guess when you really break it down like that, since they can't do it on the defensive side of the ball, it's really like they are just going for a higher scoring league. But that's so you're sacrificing the the defensive effort.
yeah,
So it's like, where do we draw the line as, from fair to unfair? Because that's what it seemed like they were going for. Not only that, but they were trying to limit injuries, which I think they were doing with the kickoff rules that were changed last year. So it's like, where does their intentions, where does their priorities lie when it comes to the game of football? And you're really changing the game of football. In this case, they're not changing it,
yeah,
um, but it's like, what are your priorities? And that maybe Roger Goodell's got to get looked at in the mirror or in the face and say, hey, are you trying to prioritize safety? Are you trying to prioritize fairness in the game for both teams? What are you trying to do here? Okay, because
yeah,
you're in a very pivotal point in your tenure as commissioner where the game is changing a lot. Athleticism is changing a lot.
yeah,
It's evolving quickly, as we've alluded to already. So, how are you going to make the changes that are necessary while also keeping the game what it is? Um, I don't know. I guess if they put it to a vote, it's a democracy. It sounds
yeah.
like amongst the teams. So, be it as it may. What are some of the other ones?
Yeah, and then I think the other one worth noting on, I think, is the Lions proposed change in the seating, which was really surprising to me because, like, Lions were a division winner, obviously, but they were proposing that instead of just seating being based on where you finished in your division, it'd be based on record. And that got shot down to the point where they actually withdrew it. So I don't even think they voted on that because they didn't get any support. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I kind of like the historic way that it's done. It's like, hey, if you didn't win your division, tough luck. Now you got a tough road to the Super Bowl. I kind of like that.
I
You
kind of
didn't.
like it too. I like it too. I could see them fighting for it a lot more if they didn't benefit from it. But if anything, the Vikings should have been the ones pissed about it.
Yeah,
And I guess I don't know why they'd be going to bat essentially for the Vikings because they got dicked. I guess you could say how things crumbled, but the Lions didn't. They came across victorious. You think if anybody would want to keep it the same, it'd be the Lions.
yeah. That's what I thought, man. And
Yeah, I like it.
so
I like it that way too. You either win your division and you feast on the spoils of winning your division if you do, and if you don't, then you have to go through the gauntlet. If you still want to make it, you still have a path to make it. Given how you played in the regular season,
yeah,
but you have to face the gauntlet, and the tide's going to be a little higher than it would be if you would have won your division. So
yeah,
um, I like it how it is.
yeah.
Is that how things are, or did they change it?
Yeah, they left it as is.
Okay,
I think they withdrew that, and I don't think they voted on it. I think it just didn't get any support whatsoever. So
gotcha.
yeah, I like it, man. I like it the way it is. If you win your division, great. If not, better luck next year. Like, or
Yeah,
you got to win a lot of games to get to the Super Bowl, which hasn't really happened historically. Like, if you're a wild card, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to get there. I guess now you got more wild card teams, so that stat's going to change. Now you have any
yeah.
kind of wild card team, but historically, it's really tough. So, yeah, I like it the way it is.
Any changes to the kickoff rules or what?
They were talking about moving the kickoff. so that way you get more kickoff returns. I don't know if that passed, and honestly, I don't know if they talked about moving the overtime rules from the playoffs to the regular season to where both teams would get an opportunity. Um,
To the
I
regular
think,
season, not just
yeah,
playoffs?
yeah, and I think that might have passed.
Okay, I like
So
that rule because I mean, I
uh,
will never forget, and I have it still on my thing here, my banners, a day that lives in infamy, and it's when it was when the Chiefs
the
played the
Bill,
Bills.
yeah, I know where you were going with that. I was like,
Yep.
oh, the Bills fan. He's probably like, yep, that's got to change.
That was a precedent-setting game, though. I think
It
that's
was.
really that's been a bookmark in a lot of the rules changers and makers, uh, playbook for a long time. That was a precedent set like, you have precedent-setting court cases. That was a precedent-setting game to make a change for the better, and I hope they do make that change, and it took some time. Okay, that game was a couple years ago now, and they changed it for the playoffs, thank God. But to make it in the regular season, I think that's only right. I think that's only right to do that. And then if you go that extra, uh, whatever the extra period or what have you, I guess would the game still end in a tie, or would that never happen again?
So they just say, here's the few of the rule changes. So overtime, both teams will have possession of the ball in overtime during the regular season, regardless of the outcome of the first drive. The overtime period will remain 10 minutes. So hypothetically, they could still tie, right?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
guess
think
so. If that overtime period expires with no scores,
and then
maybe just a change of possession.
touchbacks will move from the 35 to the 30-yard line. So that did pass.
Okay.
Onside kicks says teams can now attempt onside kicks at any point in the game when trailing instead of just the fourth quarter. I don't know why. The last year's onside kick rules were like the
Thank
dumbest
God they
change.
made that rule. Oh
Oh
my
my gosh.
god.
Like
But you still
what
have to announce it though, right? You still have to announce,
yeah, it
okay, we're doing
says
an onside kick.
the alignment for an onside kick has also changed. The kick going from a 34-yard line and players lining up at the 35. So they changed the alignment a bit, but I don't know about the declaration part. I'm thinking that's
Gotcha.
still the same.
I'm fine with that. If they're trailing, yeah, at least don't limit them to the fourth quarter like it was
Yeah,
last
like,
year. What the
you
hell
could
was
be
that?
getting blown out by 30 by then.
And that must have been voted on and approved through the same democracy
Yeah,
process, right?
yeah, I don't know how that
Come
passed.
on, man.
That's a terrible rule, trying to take the fun out of the game, like, you think back to the Saints opening up the halftime of a Super Bowl with an onside kick. We're gonna take that away? I mean, come on, guys, like, what are we doing?
Right. It's like get on the field, get ready to play. If you don't got your hands team out there, okay, you're not expecting an onside kick. Have somebody with some kind of hands in that front line because you got to be
Here's
expecting the unexpected up there.
here's another good one. It says, "The league will expand the use of replay assist to review certain penalties, including horse collar tackles, roughing the kicker, hits on a defenseless player, face masks, etc." So they're basically expanding the replayability. So I don't know why it's not just all plays at this point. I mean, everything should be able to be reviewed by New York or wherever their officiating headquarters is, because I mean that kind of holds everything accountable. That would make the whole NFL's rigged go away if they could just make it right at the time of the play.
Right.
If there's a bad call, they take a timeout. It goes to New York and they make it right. That's
They've
just an
done that for
easy way to do it.
baseball. They've done that for baseball, and they're doing it for shit. You can call a foul in the NBA now. They can do this, and if they got challenges to give, they're going to the monitor to see if that was a foul or not. That is
Yeah,
now that's crazy shit right there. Crazy
yeah,
shit.
yeah. I feel like they're finally taking after some of the farm leagues, the XFLs, UFLs, USFL, because they've had that similar like review system. So hopefully they start sliding more to that than what they've been historically.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do. Really hoping they do. Well, this is how I stand on the kickoff, at least, and this is all I'll say. And all the other rules changes seem like they're mostly appropriate. But if you're just going to limit I don't know if it was it 20 yards that they can catch the ball and return it, or is it less than that?
So touchbacks will be moved from the 35 to the 30-yard line. So basically, they're just trying to tweak that a bit. I mean, the touchback thing has been kind of crazy. We've 20, 25. They just keep they keep playing with it every year. So I don't know what they're trying to supposedly make it safer for players, but at the same time, they're getting rid of the kick return completely.
Right,
So
and that's exactly what I'm saying. If you're gonna get rid of the kick return completely within the rules, how they're written and how constricted players are to and players on both sides, the kicking team and the receiving team, they're both constricted because you gotta get within such a fine window just to have the possibility of return. At that point, just give them the ball at the 25.
yeah,
Let's
for
just
real.
start at the 25-yard line or the 20, something like that. Start them out there. Take the possibility of a crazy high speed, high intensity collision resulting in injury. Take that completely out of the equation because we're just beating around the bush at this point.
And with that being the way it's headed, now it's like even harder for young players to make an impact. If you're an undrafted free agent rookie that's trying to make a team, a lot of guys, have made teams just from making a big impact play early in either the preseason or one of the first few
Right.
weeks on special
Specialty
teams.
teams. Yeah.
So, yeah, you're kinda taking that away from young guys too
Big
that
time. Big
so,
time.
I don't know, who's the running back for the Broncos that ended up being in the Hall of Fame and he won a couple Super Bowls with Elway? I always forget his name.
Uh
Davis, right? Terrell
Might
Davis?
be Davis. Yeah. Number 30. Yep.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how he made the roster was he made a huge couple hits in special teams, and next thing you know, he's a Hall of Famer. It's like they're kinda taking that away from the game. So, I don't know, it's like I feel like we're starting to get older and we're starting to, get that nostalgia, like, "The game was better when we were kids, give us back the old football."
And
I
he was
almost
even better back in the day when our parents were kids.
So,
That's what they're saying. I mean, but it's changed so much, Robert, since then until when we knew it as our heyday, and you'd see the unbelievable hits on Chad Ochocinco and Tom Brady, and
Reggie
Peyton Manning
Bush.
would take hits, Reggie Bush. I mean, these guys were getting whomped. And
Oh, yeah.
it's became such a different sport. And you wouldn't see flags on those plays. There was no flags on those plays.
No, they're like, "No,
That was the
it's
game of
clean.
football.
Send them back out there."
Send him back up. Get him out maybe for a couple plays to start seeing straight again. And the next thing you know, we're off to the races. They're back in the game. I mean, there's no flags, there's no reviews. We're not getting New York on the phone. None of that shit.
Yeah.
So the game's
Yeah, I think
changed a lot. I just hope it stays within a margin of error or margin of uh, enjoyment for me, especially and you, because we know what it was. Okay, we know
yeah.
what it was, and we don't want to see that go away.
I'm all about it being safer, but I don't wanna
Yeah,
see the game
absolutely.
be reduced to nothing because of it either, so,
Right. There
I
is a happy medium to be
yeah,
reached. So
yep.
we hope we get there at some point. We got Aaron Walker walk sauce with a comment. Remember the show Jacked Up on ESPN? Yes, I do. And you don't see that show anymore, do you? Because it goes kind of against the entire narrative of we want to protect the player, and they're playing the gridiron's a battlefield. Okay, I don't know who's got to be reminded about that, but you go back and watch some old episodes of Jacked Up on ESPN, and you'll get reminded real quick. Robert, have you ever seen that show?
Yeah, I've seen that. I also like the Pros versus Joes
Yeah,
and, just watching those dudes get lit up. So,
yeah, that was
uh,
entertainment, man. I mean, the people would love that nowadays. I mean, that wasn't just something that was cool back in the 2010s. Come
but
on.
hey, I got to live it too, man. I was 150 pounds in high school. I got wrecked every practice. I mean, it is what it is. So,
Exactly, exactly. We all
just
took our
try
fair
not to
share.
catch me. That's the only thing I could do, just outrun people, but,
Well, I think
uh
I took my fair share hits from walk sauce actually. So, doing man makers, and I wasn't the
oh, yeah,
biggest
he was
guy
an
out there on the
animal.
field.
Yeah,
This
he's an
guy's an
animal.
animal. Let me tell you, he's an animal on the basketball court too. He'll throw elbows like it's his job out there. Troy Polamalu was taking souls. I mean, he was. He was one of those. He was one of those guys. He was a headhunter, and you had so many of those guys, especially at the free safety position back in the heyday of NFL football. And you go back to like 2005, 2006. That's when they were actually giving a shit in the Pro Bowl, and they were playing their asses off, hitting hard. They wanted to
Yep.
win that game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it
you
was a
don't
good
see that anymore. Sad.
yeah. Yeah, it's a different game, man. I like some for the good, but some for the bad too. But we gotta
Absolutely.
just take what we can and hold on to what we can.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hopefully, the
that's
game
right.
doesn't change too much on us.
I know that's the big hope right there. The big hope, the big wish is that it doesn't get too far away from what we know as the mean when it comes to the game of football. That's what we just don't want that. Good deal. All right, Robert. That brings us to the end of the show. You got any final words, final thoughts for anybody? I'm sure they're excited that the DCP is back. We're looking forward to NFL football. What do you got for them going into the weekend?
Yeah, for Lions fans, man, I'd say we got tough sledding. This is a tough schedule. We got playoff team after playoff team after playoff team. So yeah, if I was a betting man, I don't know if I'm pushing the over on it. I don't know if I'm pushing the over. So, but it's gonna be a good season. It's gonna be exciting. There's gonna be a lot of good new players, and yeah, I hope everybody has a great week.
Good deal. Good deal. Yep, I'm looking forward to it as well. And it's gonna be a great season. Looking forward to it. And we're gonna see who the shining stars are. Hopefully sooner than later. Okay. A lot of guys that maybe we didn't see last year, we're gonna see this year. Like I think JJ's got to be coming back, right?
Oh yeah,
So he'll be exciting to watch him play and see how he plays. This is his debut season essentially.
yeah. Watch Kirby Joseph pick him off multiple times.
Yeah,
It's gonna be great.
right. Oh man, I mean that's an NFC North battle, so they're going to be battling it out, and that dynamic there. How's Sam Darnold going to take a back seat to JJ after how long he's been in the league and what he was able to accomplish with very limited resources? It's going to be
I,
exciting to
I don't
see.
know what's gonna happen, man.
I know it's too early to tell. So we're going to talk soon again here on the DCP very soon. We'll get something set up immediately. But for now, we'll leave it at that. Make sure to check us out on social media at Gin Sports Network on IG. Check us out on our website, ginsportsnetwork.com, and find our link tree at the bottom of the podcast in the description for more information, more of our socials, etc. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for tuning in to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm John Jay II alongside Robert Rachow. Have a great night.